Welcome to INFINTECH, where decision makers connect. INFINTECH is organized by Logate, your painless vendor for digital journey, in partnership with Mastercard, empowering connections, shaping tomorrow.
So I'm guessing you're here to learn more about the state of AI. Who's heard of AI in this room? Raise your hands. Great, cool. That's what I would expect. There's an old quote by science fiction author William Gibson that says the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. I'll give you an example of what this means. So the other week, I was in Phoenix, Arizona. If you know where that is, it's very hot there. But they have driverless cars. In this case, Waymo. So with your phone, you can order a Waymo driverless cab, and it'll show up and take you to your destination. Who's actually driven and taken a ride in a driverless taxi before? It's pretty cool, actually. So it sounds scary. It drives like your 95-year-old grandfather. It goes very slow. Actually, in the Balkans, I shouldn't say that because you'll drive crazy. But during this ride, I think it took 8 minutes. And what I found interesting was I was on my phone using AI to write an application. And that's, I think, very interesting in itself, the fact that I could use AI, talk to it, and we could write code, and that code could be deployed. And that is what I mean when I say, or when I read that quote, the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed yet. These capabilities are things where I think if you were to go back 5 years ago and you were to say, I'm going to be in a driverless taxi run by AI, talking to my phone and writing code and deploying it from my phone using AI, that would seem like science fiction, right? That's already being done. And so, I'm here to talk about what I call the Great Reset that's happened across basically every industry right now. And whether you know it or not, there's a massive tsunami coming at you and your industries. What does this mean? Well, if we take a step back, before the popularization of ChatGPT, the world, it felt very same, right? Things were moving fairly fast, but the world of data, where I come from, and I come from machine learning, I guess it's now AI, it was sort of a very linear path. You could expect small improvements each year. And then I remember in 2020, actually, I was using GPT-3 had come out. Who had played with GPT-3 back in 2020? You? Right. It was cool. It wasn't that interesting. It was kind of neat. And I forgot about it. And then a few years later, ChatGPT comes out, which incidentally, it was supposed to be a science project, actually, at OpenAI. Nobody expected that to become popular. But then it became the most downloaded application in the world in record time. But up to that point, right, it was the same as it ever was. IT, data, security, all of these things are considered back office IT functions. They're internal cost centers, right? They're sort of invisible work that nobody sees. And what's changing now is, AI data is becoming much more front and center with everybody. But before I get to that, one more thing that's I think to talk about is, the traditional way of looking at IT was people, process, and technology. And historically, IT initiatives had, I think, an 80% failure rate or something like that, maybe more. It's about that. It's been hovering around that number for several decades now. What's also interesting is most IT tool adoption, I believe the statistic is around, I think, 25%. That's historically been the case as well. So you're talking an 80% failure rate with 25% tool adoption. But we keep doing the same things over and over and expecting different results, which I think is very interesting. I think the big difference today is AI is being used by nearly everybody who uses AI in their own day-to-day existence, right? Yeah, there's a lot of hands up. I was talking actually backstage with just a lot of the volunteers here and asking them how they use AI, and that was interesting. Everybody's using it. Our MC actually, she uses it all the time too, and I thought that was pretty cool. But everybody's finding a use case for it now. And this is the big difference, I would say, between the evolutions we've seen in IT in the past and the revolution that we're seeing today, which is this technology is being used by everybody. So the recent study that came out from MIT when they talked about how 95% of generative AI projects fail, for one, if you look behind the scenes, it isn't failing at all, actually. The current tools are improving. But an interesting number in that study was 60% of the people that they surveyed were bringing their own AI to the workplace because the AI their work was providing for them was not sufficient. And so you're now seeing the rise of shadow AI, which I think is very, very fascinating. You don't have to raise your hands if you're doing that at your work. That's fine. Keep it to yourself. But the fundamentals haven't changed, right? Things like security are still very, very important. I can't imagine a world where we decide that security is not important. That would be odd. Governance, is very, very important right now. But what's happening? We still have this old world of legacy practices in IT, and that's, I don't think, going anywhere, but it's going to be changed. It's going to be flipped on its head very, very soon. If you look at the rise of how AI is scaling right now, there's a curve that goes like this. If you Google AI scaling properties, what you'll find is today, 2 years ago, AI was basically at a high school level. Right now, it's getting close to, quote, PhD level. Very soon, what you're going to find is AI will be at the AI researcher level. And at this point, probably in the next 2 years, you're going to have AIs that are building new AIs. And what this means is you're talking about IQs that aren't just human-like in the hundreds. I think maybe the highest IQ is it's a bit above 200 for human. You're talking about IQs that will eventually be in the thousands or tens of thousands. And this is a very strange thing to comprehend because this is happening before our very eyes, and it's happening right now. And what does this mean exactly? This means, it means quite a few things. I think for the immediate future, what this means for everybody in this room is, again, the reset button has been hit on everybody. You're in the Balkans. I come from America. We're in different places. I understand. You're in finance. It's a bit more regulated, but the future isn't going to wait. I would say that this is the moment when, because everybody's back at the starting line, everyone needs to be working on very actively becoming AI native, building new workflows, rethinking your business, rethinking your practices. If you don't do this now, again, that curve I was describing to you, that curve where AI becomes smarter than everyone in this room, you either need to get on this wave, I would say, or potentially find something else to do. This wave is coming. I don't think it's going to have any respect for geographical boundaries or anything for that matter. But this is what I've been telling people. The world of today right now with AI, it means all data is useful, right? You're talking about images, text, audio, video, data in databases. All this data is going to be combined, is going to be used for new use cases. Who tried Sora 2, the new OpenAI app for video? Has anyone tried it? It's trippy. I actually don't know if you can get it here, but if you can, download Sora. It is ridiculous, the quality of the movies coming out. But all this stuff is going to pose very interesting new vectors for security, for example, right? With things you couldn't even imagine before. New use cases for business that you haven't thought of, and potentially new ways for young upstart companies to upend big incumbents in record time. This is happening in the US every day right now. I was just reading, who was it, Cursor. Has anyone used Cursor, the coding app? I know you're probably not devs. So this company, Anysphere, they're in talks to raise at a $30 billion valuation. I think they've been around for 2 years. But they've already managed to make a $500 million ARR off of their coding assistant. That shows you how fast things are going, right? I think that was one of the fastest ramp-ups of all time. But this is becoming very common, where you're seeing companies that are able to hit $1 million, $2 million in revenue in less than 12 months. That should give you pause for a bit. So things are happening much more quickly. Yes, it's happening much more quickly. And I would say the advice I have right now is everyone's a beginner again, right? Everyone has the same tools. Everyone has the same capabilities in front of them. When I talk to some of the most experienced engineers in the world, people have built the systems at places like Google, at Netflix, and so forth. All of them feel like they're starting over again. So if you feel like inadequate or insecure about your ability to embrace AI, and I would say put in your 10,000 hours of mastery into AI, go ahead and do it. This will put you much farther along, both as people and as companies. But again, the reset button has been hit, and I would say the opportunity for everyone in this room is to take advantage of it and build something new. I have never seen anything like this before, and I hope that you can invent the new future, because it is coming very fast. With that, I think we'll do a fireside chat. Yep. And for fun, I'm actually going to have ChatGPT be the third participant in our fireside chat. So this will be hi. Let me get our other guest on here real quick. 1 second.
Yeah.
Okay.
So previous panel was taking this.
Is your mic on?
Uh-huh.
Oh. Can you hear me okay? Check.
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 Yeah.
Check. No?
Hear me now? Well, so
Is my mic working here? Nope.
Yep, I can hear you just fine. Sounds like your mic is definitely working on my end. So you're all good to go.
Thank you.
so we have a third party in this fireside chat.
Here. Yep.
Yeah. In previous panel, we were taking this dimension of current perspective towards future, and Joe approached this one from global to local. So we will try and then to make this like analogy how you see the global AI impact, how AI is shaping the world, and you mentioned it briefly in your keynote. But just wrap it up. Additionally, if you have how AI, you see, is shaping global trends over, as you are present in all conferences all over the world.
Yeah.
So you can have this like parallel between different geopolitical areas, etc. So yeah.
So what I find interesting is there is definitely a difference. I feel like I need to move my chair. I feel like there's a big difference between, there's probably, I would say, 3 major geographical modes of AI right now. There's the West in terms of the US. There's the West in terms of Western Europe, and I would say there's China. Right? Shut up. So, China is obviously developing its own models right now. They got DeepSeek, they got Qwen, they got many, many others out there. Europe has Mistral. Europe also has the EU AI Act, which is very interesting in itself. That is, I think, to be determined how this ends up impacting places like the United States. And then obviously in the US, there are no real AI regulations at all, and so we're just sort of going full steam ahead, with I think the blessing of our own government. just to go and build as many data centers as humanly possible right now. So I think that's
so
one of the big...
This is like innovation first versus regulation first approach.
So I was actually speaking at, what was it, 2.5 years ago? I was in Paris speaking to French government and business officials. And I thought what was very interesting is somebody came up to me after. This was during the French pension crisis, by the way, to give it a timestamp and sort of the height of thinking there. For some reason, they kept asking me questions about pensions. I don't understand pensions. But one person said something that stuck to me. He said the EU regulates and the US innovates. I thought that was a really sad thing to say, actually, because I feel like there's a lot of really smart engineers and I think creative talent in the EU and in Europe in general. And it feels like if the contribution to the world is regulation, I would hope that that Europe could do more, because there's, like I said, I think pound for pound, some of the best engineers I've seen are in Europe, not the US. So, but for whatever reason, it feels like that talent is, they're going to America right now is what's happening, to go work in, Silicon Valley. If you go to Silicon Valley right now, who's been to Silicon Valley or the Bay Area before? It's a different universe. I would say, even though, and I go there all the time, it feels like, if you want to feel like you're in the future, you go to a place like that. I would urge all of you to go, spend a week there. But what's happening there is AI, the discussions in AI are about 5 years ahead of where anything else is right now. I would say, maybe except in China. But everyone's working on the latest thing. They're building things that are probably 3 to 5 years out. There, and that's just normal. So,
we mentioned briefly last night, but as we are in fintech, so this is maybe purely general we are speaking about. But when it's fintech about, we mentioned this innovation first approach and autonomous agentic AI, creating banking accounts, and how AI is impacting financial innovation currently in USA. Do you see that as a current state, or it is still evolving in terms of real use cases and everything?
Yeah, it's interesting, and again, I'm not fintech, so I barely understand your world. But last night at dinner, we were actually looking, because I think somebody was talking about whether AI agents were able to create bank accounts in the U.S., and in fact, there is somebody already did that. So, we have so AI agents can autonomously go and create bank accounts, which I thought was quite fascinating. Google just announced its new agent-to-agent payment protocol. So you can have AI agents conduct commerce on your behalf, which I thought was cool, also a bit frightening, but we'll all be comfortable with that in about 5 years, I think. What was interesting too, as an anecdote, right? So I was talking to an engineer at a fintech company in the US from the Bay Area, from one of the former PayPal founders. So this particular company, this will give you an idea of how we do things in America. It's run really fast, build something. You're probably going to incur lots of technical debt, lots of make a gigantic mess behind you. This engineer described, so they went public. They're obviously worth tens of billions or hundreds of billions of dollars or whatever. Very big company. If I named them, you would know who it is. But he described his job as putting bubble wrap and duct tape over their systems because they do not have time to go back and fix anything. That's how fast they move.
Never happening in Europe, I think, that way, but let's see.
Yeah, but that's...
so if you go local, so for a small market like Montenegro, and then what do you see are main prerequisites for implementing AI, for going the direction, having in mind these all regulations and strict rules?
It's interesting. I mean, I don't know much about Montenegro, obviously. I've been here for less
than
a few days. But
we are in EU in 2 years, so let's say.
It's, it's hard to generalize, but I like I said in my quick keynote here, everyone has the same tools right now, the same basic tools at least. You all have access to the same model providers, with some caveats, obviously. Regulatory, I think it's a bit different what you have access to versus what I have access to in America. I don't think you have as much. But the point is, you have access to the same technology that every other company has right now. I think this is the big difference between today's world and yesterday's world. Today, you have access to the cutting-edge foundation models that are out. You have access to cutting-edge open source models that are out. There's no reason why you shouldn't be looking at this at all. So I'd say that, again, everyone is at the same starting line. Everyone, basically, a pile of people, some were ahead, some were not. You're all back at the starting line.
Everything reset, so...
It reset.
Yeah.
And you all were given the ability to run really fast all of a sudden, too. So it's not like you're the old person. That's a choice. You can choose to go back to the starting line and do the same things that you've been doing for decades. I don't think this is a plan going forward. I think you're going to see change happening at a rate that nobody in this room is comfortable with at all. And the only advice I have is to be part of that change and accept it. If you want to go slow and you want to wait and you want to be conservative, I think that's a huge, huge risk. I think it's a massive risk. You're going to be eaten alive by somebody who's moving faster.
I think Milos mentioned actually that having these whole business processes in place and just putting on top digitalization and then AI agents is not really the right way to go. So definitely redefining businesses from ground up.
Yeah.
Having this simplification in mind all the time. And then let's see what will be part of our wallets when AI.
ChatGPT, what do you suggest for Europe in terms of businesses that want to modernize with AI?
Well, I'd say Europe actually has a unique opportunity to lean into what I might call a balanced modernization approach. You've got a foundation of strong engineering talent, and at the same time, a regulatory environment that values ethical AI and privacy. So it's not just about moving fast for the sake of speed, it's about innovating thoughtfully. My suggestion would be for European businesses to embrace AI in a way that leverages that unique positioning. For instance, start by modernizing the core business processes with AI tools that respect the EU's ethical frameworks. Think about how you can use AI for smarter, more efficient customer service, or for automating certain internal workflows that free up your teams.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Yes, actually we were considering that we just put 2 laptops here and program it, put our memory, my memory, Joe's memory, and then they can do something out of it. But thank you for this, Joe.
Yep.
So you often say that AI is, and you mentioned it in your keynote as well, that AI is only as strong as its data is. So which AI use cases are absolutely impossible without strong data foundations?
Anything where you need to obviously query and utilize your existing data, right? But who feels their data in their companies is in awesome shape right now, that you just have the best data ever? Right, exactly. And so this is going to be the challenge that everybody faces is when we use ChatGPT normally, right? That's a conversation, that's you talking to something that queries the internet. But when it's built on your data, this becomes different. And so you have actually 2 problems now. You have the data, which is actually difficult to query with large language models still. I can get into the technical reasons, but we have 3 minutes. So the data is hard to query. Part of that is because the underlying data models for databases are just really bad, and nobody's paid much attention to them. And so that's going to be a huge problem. But the second one is when you have AI agents running around your systems, this is also an interesting challenge because none of your systems are made for agents. So if you think of the average person who will query a database maybe once, twice, you will have thousands of agents all creating different variations of types of queries. It could be a search query, a limit type query, or they might be who knows, right? Different types of queries for different types of use cases. Your database has no way of optimizing for the types of queries that it's receiving right now from an agent. Nor is it able to stand the pressure of this much activity. So this is something you're going to have to think about as well, is there is not any company right now that has an agent-first architecture. This does not exist. So you need to start thinking about the semantic overlays of your data. right? You need to start thinking in terms of how do we connect this together? Because it's not just rows and columns right now. You have to start thinking in terms of graphs and words and semantics and tokens and obviously you know, agent queries per second now. This is an entirely new workflow that's entering very quickly. And I can see this being a huge issue. You're already starting to see it when enterprises are trying to adopt agents and AI. The two big challenges, organization is obviously the biggest one. You're trying to fit these things onto old processes and ways of doing things. I think that's a mistake. You should reimagine how you're going to work in an agent-first world. But the other one's the architectures, especially when you're talking legacy architectures. They are not made for this. I mean, these architectures are barely made for 2025 for regular human use, let alone machines. And so this is going to be a massive, massive opportunity for you, actually.
Yeah, risk and opportunity that's come together.
I think you're looking at a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity in several fronts. In terms of infrastructure, data, processes, everything, reimagining your company. Again, my advice is don't sit and wait. You know, that's the thing when I said earlier, we're all staring into the void, wondering what's on the other side. Go make it happen. Go create it. Don't wait. What are you waiting for? You don't need permission. Well, you kind of do if you're in finance. But, but you know, the people who I think are much more attuned to this and native are going to win. Yep.
Yeah, so we have to wrap it up
Yeah,
soon.
5 more questions. It's great.
Yeah, so this is your first book, which is really fundamental of fundamentals for data engineering. You are currently working on mixed modeling arts, which is probably this talk all will be part of it.
Yeah,
it
for
will
data.
be out next year probably. Beginning of the next year.
Yeah, next year.
Yeah. So you also briefly suggested to the leadership here present which approach and mindset to have for having this AI-ready culture. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
For connecting this global vision to local opportunities.
Of course. Thank you very much for having me. I love your country. It's great.
Yeah.